Good morning and welcome to another English class. Today I will try to play a game before we start the class. The game is a review of the story The Adopted Son, the story that we read at the beginning of unit number 4. But I will wait for a couple of minutes because I just see that only 5 of you are already in the class. And the purpose is that most of you are able to participate. And if nobody else join the class, we will play ourselves. Let me share today's lesson with you. It's in your spotlights on literature. Is here. The topic for today's class is adverbial clauses. Yesterday we studied adjective clauses. Today we're going to work on adverb clauses or adverbial clauses. So those kind of subordinate clauses are a little bit more complicated than adjective clauses because they have different functions. In an adjective clause, they only modify nouns, but in this case, adverb clauses, they don't really modify. Well, yeah, of course, they modify somehow, but the main purpose is to function as an adjective or as an adverb itself, the whole clause. And we use a lot of common subordinating conjunctions. We use all of the subordinating conjunctions that you may imagine. But those are the most common ones that if you remember the topic we studied last term about transitional devices, you will remember when we use those expressions to express time, to express contrast, sequence, reasons, etc. So the thing is that you have to remember a couple of things related to subordinating conjunctions before you are able to use adverb clauses. I have a video, I have the explanation here, and also some exercises to work. Good morning, Victor. Good morning, Ossie. And so this is what we're going to do. First, we're going to read the concepts. We'll try to understand the concepts in the section, understand the concepts. And then we're gonna play the review game that is about the adopted son. And then we're going to continue with this topic and a little practice. Let me see. Maybe my dear Ángel Alexander Romero, can you help me please reading what an adverb clause is? Hi Ángel, help me please read this paragraph. Alexander Romero.
An adverb clause is a subordinate clause that modifies a verb, an adjective, or another verb. Adverb. It contains a verb and its subject, and it expresses when, where, why, how much, how long, to what extent, or under what conditions.
Thank you very much. So the example says, the Juviers visited the Balans family so that they could adopt a child. As you can see here, the clause, the whole clause is acting as an adverb because it's modifying. Well, I said that it's not exactly modifying, but it's functioning as an adverb because it provides more information about the verb. The verb is visited, and so that they could adopt a son. This is like reason why they visited the Balance family. Using the subordinating conjunction so that you are expressing reason. The Cuviers visited the Balance family. Why? What is the reason? This is one of the questions that the adverb clause respond, like a regular adverb. If you remember last year when we studied adverbs, we could see that they all respond different questions and we use them for different purposes. In this case, it's exactly the same thing, but now we don't only have individual isolated words. We have a complete clause. And remember, a clause needs subject and it needs a predicate. If the clause doesn't have subject and predicate team, that means that it's not a clause, it's a phrase. And we have, in this example, the adverb clause modifies the verb visited, telling why the Cuviers visited the Ballant family so that they could adopt a child. Another example here. Although it was a difficult choice, the Ballant family gave up their child for adoption. So in this case, the verb that has been modified is gave up. And the transitional device or the subordinating conjunction that I'm using is although. It sounds like a contrast, not exactly a contrast, but for one side, the situation was difficult, but at the end, they they turned it out that they give their children, their child, because it was only one, their child in adoption. And in the explanation it says, adverb clauses are introduced by subordinating conjunctions. Here we have the most common ones. And here you have although and so that. This is for why, this is for showing some contrast. And says that coordinating conjunctions which show the relation between the adverb clauses and the words that has been modified. So the relationship between the verb and the clause is more information. And the information is more specific. They show you when, where, why, how much, how long, what extent, or under what other conditions. Important for you to remember the most common subordinating conjunctions. You can take a look to the other class, the one that we use for coherence and cohesion. Some of the uses are very similar. The words are the same. And we use them to show contrast, to show reason, to show transition, many uses. And so let me see how many are in the class now. Well, I think that is enough to have the review of the adopted son. With 2 teams will be okay. Okay, they will be boys versus girls, like it always is, because it's very difficult to group you differently. Okay, wait a second. Okay, so you know how to play this game. We have played it many times. And all the questions here has to do with the adopted son by G. de Maupassant. Number, please, boys. In the boys side, we have Victor, Gabriel, Ángel. En Alessandro. Let me see. Daniel says number 5. Okay, which family refused to give their child in adoption? Was it the balang or the tubach? Guys,
The balloon.
the balangs. They,
Yeah.
okay, they refuse. Well, actually, the balangs accepted and the tubach refused. Sorry, no points for you. Ladies,
4.
thank you. When did the author die? Guy de Maupassant. When did he die? What is the year, the date? 10 seconds.
1893.
1893. 1893 it is. Okay, boys. Víctor Alessandro Romero. 7. For 20 points. What did they usually have for breakfast? I forgot to type for breakfast. Pollo campero. So what do they use to have for breakfast? Remember that they have a very particular diet. Sort of uncommon, atypical. 10 seconds. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Really, I did not read the question well. It is not what, it is what time. Thank God I'm the teacher. Okay, and my dear Angel just typed the answer. And I don't know if I have to give you the points because it was my mistake that I read the question badly, but on the other hand, you could see it and read it. But because you know the information, I'll give you the points, boys. Sorry, I'm still asleep. Girls,
9.
thank you. Wow, congratulations. You have won 50 points. That was great. Boys, boys, boys. Maybe Nelson.
10.
10. Thank you, Nelson. Name the month of the year. Now I'm gonna read very slowly. Name the month of Madame Henri Joubier's arrival. When did she arrive? What is the month? Is it May? Is it February? Is it October? December? Or August? Like this month? Guys, for 25 points. 10 seconds. Five, four, three, two, one. So the answer is August. What a coincidence. It's this month. Girls, you have the chance to increase your lead.
Number 2.
Thank you. What time? Okay, now what time do they usually have supper? It's dinner. Supper is dinner. What time do they usually have it?
O'clock.
What time?
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock. 6 o'clock it is. Congratulations. You have 20 more points. Boys. Boys, boys, boys. Gabriel. Ah, wait. There's Daniel. Alessandro. 16. Which family had 3 girls and 1 boy? The Tuvach or the Balangs? It's a 50-50 question. Is either the Balangs or the Tuvach? No? Okay, we'll see the answer. Ah, wait, there's something. The Tuvach, says Angel. Let me see. The Tuvach, yes. Congratulations, you have 5 more points. Osiris,
11.
thank you. Which family accepted Henry Duvier's proposal? We have seen the other hand. We have seen which family refused. If you remember, now you know which family accepted the deal.
The Valens.
Yes, the balance. Congratulations. Wow, you're almost unreachable at this point of the game, girls. 90 versus 25. The problem always here that sometimes things change when you choose some power-ups that are not convenient for you. Gabriel Méndez. Gabriel Méndez, a number. Number 1. Thank you, Omar. Wow, Omar, you're a lucky charm. You really are a lucky charm. You have given 50 points for your team. And now you're close. Okay, ladies. Iris. Let me see, 14. For 15 points, how much, we're talking about money, how much Madame de Huviers offered to the Tuvach for their child? How much money did she offer to the family for their child? Huh? They were monthly payments. I don't really remember how much it was. What is in your books?
100 francs.
100.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, you're totally right. 100 francs a month. Still increasing your lead. 105 versus 75. Boys, you need a power up. Pronto.
3.
Thank you. Hey, that is so dirty. The other team loses 25 points. I don't know if you're gonna receive those points, but what I'm sure is that ladies will lose 25. They just lose them and you don't get them. But now you just have a 5-point gap. Ladies, time for revenge. Payback time.
6.
6. What does frugally mean? Because remember that they have a very frugal diet.
Of a little expense.
Little expense. Let me see. Exactly. Little expense. Well done. Boys. $13. For 10 points. What does the word rancid mean? What is the meaning of this word? According to the text. Ajá. Rancid, rancid. Guys, you just have to look in the glossary section. And you have 10 seconds to do so. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. All right. Unpleasant smell or taste due to decomposition. Like in Spanish, we say está rancio. It's because it has been spoiled. It's that smell that spoiled things get. Okay, no points. Ladies. Andrea, Elisa. Evie. Andrea. Okay. 8. You have to give 25 points to boys. Now, boys, you are in the first place. You are leading, believe it or not. Okay, boys, your last number. 12. Okay, Parras. For 20 points, what time do they usually have lunch? They were early eaters or late eaters. Did they have their meal some time or not? Someone that helped me. Aha, boys, no idea. What time did they have? Did they usually have lunch? 10 seconds. It's in your books.
I don't know, breakfast.
No, at the time. What time did they have lunch? At 10, at 11, at 3, at
3 p.m.
3 p.m. Okay, and you have no time for more tries. It was exactly at noon.
Angel said in the chat the answer.
Yeah, Angel said it. Okay, let me see what time did Angel. Yeah, Angel posted that message a minute ago. Okay, yeah, you got the points. So girls, unless there's a miracle here, you swap points or you reset the scores, there's inevitable that you lose. And the question is, yeah, it's a question. How many novels did the author? And I said he is Guy de Maupassant. How many novels did he write? Novels, because he wrote thousands of short
Six
stories.
novels.
See, yay, 6. The rest were short stories. Boys, unbelievably, you have won. No, actually, you respond a couple of questions. Angel responded a lot of questions correctly. Congrats. Okay, now I want to try this game with you. So, like I said, in contrast of adjective clauses, where that they modify or give more information about a subject, an adverb clause is a sentence that functions as an adverb for another word and attempts to answer or actually answers questions like where, why, how much, how long, like in the examples that we read. Important to point out that you have to remember the meaning, or not also the meaning, but the usage of these subordinating conjunctions, because they are used before the adverbial or adverb clauses. But there's a teacher here, another teacher that I have in YouTube, that he will explain with more examples. Let me share the screen with you and try to pay attention to this, because then we're going to move to some exercises in your spotlights. Just let me see if I have activated the audio. And yes, I have. So pay attention, my friends. This is just, he's explaining that he has also uploaded adjective clauses videos, noun clauses, dependent clauses, etc. Just in case that if you want to take a look. Now let's hear what this teacher got to say about adverb clauses.
Different from all of these. Today we're looking at the adverb clause, which depends on the grammar book you're using. Again, they like to use different words. Some people call this the subordinate clause. Subordinate meaning under, right? Sub means under. It's under the independent clause, means it's the independent clause is the more important one. The subordinate clause is the second. Now, the thing to remember about adverb clauses, what makes them different from noun clauses or adjective clauses, is that they don't modify words. okay? A noun clause modifies or acts as a specific function to something in the independent clause. It could be the subject, it could be the object of the verb, for example, or it could be a complement, but it's always working with some other word in the independent clause. The adjective clause, always modifies or identifies a noun in the sentence, in the clause, etc. The adverb clause shows a relationship. And that's very, very important to remember, because the subordinate conjunctions, the words that join the clause to the independent clause, has a very specific function. The two clauses, the independent clause and the subordinate clause, have a very distinct relationship. Okay? So here are some of those relationships: reason, contrast, condition, time, purpose, and comparison. Okay? There are others, but we're going to focus on these because these are the more common ones. And there are many conjunctions, but I'm only going to give you a few here just so you have an idea how the adverb clause works. Okay? So for example, when we're looking at reason, okay, before I give you actual sentence examples, I'm going to talk to you about the conjunctions. These are called the subordinate conjunctions. They very clearly show the relationship between the clauses. So you have to remember that. So because, okay, because means reason. So I did something because I had to do it. Okay, so I did something, independent clause, because, why? I had to do it. I had no choice. That's the relationship between the two. Since can also mean because. Since, of course, can also mean since the beginning of something, since a time. But it can also mean because when we're using it as an adverb clause conjunction. Contrast. Contrast means to show that there's a difference. Now, it could be yes, no, positive, negative, but it doesn't have to be. It could be one idea and then a contrasting idea, one expectation and one completely different result. Okay? You have to be very careful not to look for a positive or negative verb or a positive or negative anything else. But we're going to look at examples for that. The more common conjunctions for that is although or though, both are okay, mean the same thing, or whereas, okay? Although I am very rich, I can't afford to buy a Lamborghini. Okay, so rich means lots of money. Can't afford means not enough money. Contrasting ideas, they're a little bit opposite from what one expects. Contrast reason. Condition. Condition means one thing must be true for something else to be true. So for the part of the independent clause to be true, the situation, the action, the event, whatever, then the condition must first be true. If I were a rich man, I would buy a Lamborghini. But even though I am a rich man, although I'm a rich man, I can't afford one. So we use if, as long as. Again, there are others. Time. This is another relationship. When did something happen? We use when, we use while, we use other conjunctions as well. I will call you when I get home. So this call that I will make to you will happen at the time that I get home. That's the relationship between the two. Purpose. I asked my boss for a pay raise so that I could afford my Lamborghini, which I can't afford now. Comparison. If I want to compare two things. Now you have to be very careful with comparisons because they don't always have to take a clause. But if you're comparing clause to clause, if you're comparing action to action, then you must use a comparison conjunction with an adverb clause to show. So I am not as able to do this as she is, right? I am not as able as she, subject, is verb. Comparing two situations, two actions, etc. So now that we see some of the relationships we can use and some of the conjunctions we can use, let's look at some sentence examples to see how this works. Okay, let's look at some examples now. I'm going to show you some do's and don'ts, things you should do, things you should not do. But again, everything has an exception. We'll talk about that. Let's look at 3 independent clauses. I love pizza. Very simple, I love pizza. I rarely eat it. I very seldom, I almost never eat pizza. It's unhealthy, it being pizza. Now, I want to combine all of these things together, but I want to make sure that there's a relationship between these two and this one, maybe even this one, okay? Although I love pizza, so right away you're expecting a contrast. I love pizza. So you think if I love pizza, I eat it every day, right? Well, right away you understand probably not. There's going to be a contrast coming up. I rarely eat it. I love it. I rarely eat it. Doesn't make sense. They're opposites. Well, there's your opposite conjunction. Why do I rarely eat it? Because it's unhealthy. So I rarely eat it, even though I love it. There's your contrast. Because there's your reason and why rarely eat. Okay? I have a contrast between how I feel about pizza and how often I eat it. I have a reason of why I rarely eat it, because it's unhealthy. So this sentence is perfect. Everything works well together. Another thing to keep in mind, one sentence can have many adverb clauses. As many relationships as you need, you can put into a sentence. Again, once your sentence gets too long with too many clauses going on, then you're starting to get a little bit confusing to your reader. Now, another thing I want to mention, you'll notice the comma here. Generally speaking, when you begin a sentence with an adverb clause, generally speaking, you're going to put a comma. Now, in today's writing, more and more writers don't like commas. If they can avoid it, if I can take it out and still make sense, and it's still very clear and very easy to understand what's going on, take it out. If you're not sure, if you're starting a sentence with an adverb, just put a comma at the end of the adverb clause before your independent clause. When you get into mixed sentences where you have clauses inside clauses, then it starts becoming more confusing, but it's still very logical. But I'll do that in a separate lesson, embedded clauses, that everything sort of mixes up together. You have all three clauses in one sentence. It's a little confusing. Let's look at this sentence. I rarely eat pizza, although I love it, because it's unhealthy. Now, if you're saying this sentence, if you're speaking it, no problem, the person will understand you. This is not a good sentence to write out in written English. Why? Because sometimes you want to place your clauses in a relationship that makes sense. I rarely eat pizza, although I love it. Okay, no problem. But if I put because it's unhealthy, now the because is about the rarely eat, not about the I love it. I don't love it because it's unhealthy. I love it because it's delicious. I don't eat it because it's unhealthy. So you have to be very careful about positioning your adverb clauses. Make sure that the relationship makes sense. In this case, because this one is connected to this clause, it seems to go together, and this seems to show the relationship there. Again, when you're speaking it, then you will say, I rarely eat pizza, although I love it, because it's unhealthy. So then to the person listening, this goes with this. This is the actual sentence, and this is an aside, but very difficult to make a reader understand that. So go with the logical connections, try to put adverb clauses or try to put clauses together so that the relationship is very clear, okay? Now, let's look at this one. I want to drive this home about the relationship. It's so important to understand the relationships between clauses. Although I love pizza, I eat it often. Now, does this sentence make sense? No, of course not. Because the reader, or even the listener in this case, as soon as the reader or listener hears this word, they're listening for two opposite things, two contrasting ideas or actions or whatever the case. So, love, good. Eat often, good. Positive, positive. There's no contrast, right? So the thing you have to remember, so what's the relationship here? Because I love pizza, I eat it often. Notice here I didn't put the comma. With because, very uncommon to use the comma, but again, you could, you don't need to, because it's very clear, the relationship, it's very clear. You have two separate clauses here. Leave it out, it's fine. Okay, let's look at some more examples. Okay, a couple more notes I want to mention. Usually, adverb clauses can go, excuse me, at the beginning of a sentence or in the middle or at the end, etc. You can put it pretty much anywhere. However, in some cases, it's recommended to put it in the middle after the independent clause. So for example, Joe took a week off work so that his wife could take a training course. So he took a week off for the purpose of giving his wife time. Now, can I begin this sentence? So that his wife could take a training course, comma, Joe took a week off work. Can I say that? Yes. Do I want to say that? No. I would rather start with this because the purpose, first of all, is more important than what he did. Okay? Unless I want to stress the time off, then I would switch it. But generally, with so that, I always put the actual purpose second and the first action first. Because you always do something, it's like cause and effect. Why do you do this? For this purpose. So it has a logical flow. But again, you don't have to. You could put it at the beginning, put the comma, finish it off, perfectly okay. Now, one last thing I want to mention. You can have sentences that have adverb clauses within adverb clauses. They can be a little bit confusing, but again, as long as you make sure you understand the relationships between all the pieces, it works out. You should stay home because if you go there, there will be trouble. Okay? You should stay home because there will be trouble. But there will only be trouble if you go. So basically, what am I doing here? I'm emphasizing the first part. Stay home. If you don't stay home, there will be trouble. So you should stay home because if you don't, there will be trouble, right? So here, the confusing part for some people is because if you have two conjunctions, right? So basically, what is going on here? This whole thing is the reason, okay? You should stay home. Now, the thing you want to do, you want to count your subjects and verbs. Subject, you should stay. Okay, that's one clause. Because there will be. Subject and verb. Well, subject, sorry, this is a conjunction. And verb. And subject and verb. As long as you have different clauses, each of these conjunctions, this conjunction has a clause, this conjunction has a clause. They both work together. Because there will be trouble is too general. Because if you go, there will be trouble. I want to emphasize the going, which is why you should stay home. Okay, so it works. But again, I'm going to look at more deeply at embedded clauses. You can watch that in a different lesson. It's a little bit confusing. It's definitely very advanced grammar, but you can watch it there and try to get a better idea. Because sometimes, especially if you're reading academic material, you will see very long sentences with like 5, 6, 7 clauses. Noun clause, adjective clause, adverb clause inside an adjective clause. All kinds of mixed sentences. As long as you can break all the pieces down, as long as you can understand the function of each word, each clause, each phrase, you can understand any sentence in English. Okay? So, if you like this lesson, please subscribe to my YouTube channel.
And this is exactly what I want you to watch, is the explanation of adverb clauses. We don't have time to respond the exercises in the book, but we will do it next week. Thank you very much, guys, for your attention and participation. See you next week.